November 24th, 2009. Beneath the quiet desert of Utah, hidden beneath layers of limestone and earth, lies a maze of tunnels so narrow that in some places a grown man can barely fit through. For decades, thousands of people entered those passages searching for adventure. Most walked back out. One never did. His name was John Edward Jones, 26 years old, a devoted husband, a loving father, a second-year medical student with dreams of becoming a pediatric heart specialist. By every measure, life was moving exactly as he had hoped. He had returned home to Utah for Thanksgiving, excited to spend time with his parents, his siblings, and lifelong friends. It was supposed to be a weekend filled with laughter. Instead, it became one of the most heartbreaking rescue attempts in American history, because once John entered a place known as Nutty Putty Cave, he would never leave. At first glance, Nutty Putty Cave didn't seem dangerous. There were no towering cliffs, no underground rivers, no massive caverns stretching into darkness. From the surface, it looked like nothing more than a small hole in the desert floor. But beneath that opening was nearly 1,400 feet of twisting limestone passages. Some sections were large enough to stand in. Others forced visitors to crawl on their hands and knees. And the deeper you traveled, the smaller those passages became. Some openings narrowed to less than 18 inches, barely wider than the door of a washing machine. For experienced cavers, tight squeezes were part of the adventure. For everyone else, they could quickly become deadly. Despite its popularity, Nutty Putty already had a troubling history. Throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s, multiple people had become trapped inside the cave. Some were rescued after hours. Others required large emergency operations involving dozens of volunteers. The rescues became so frequent that Utah officials seriously considered sealing the cave years before John's visit. But the cave remained open, and every year, thousands of visitors continued climbing underground. None of them imagined the cave's final victim was only a few years away. John Jones wasn't an inexperienced explorer. As a teenager, he'd visited Nutty Putty Cave before with friends and family. He remembered the famous passage known as the Birth Canal, a narrow squeeze that had become something of a challenge among experienced visitors. Now, years later, he wanted to experience it one more time. On the evening of November 24th, 2009, John arrived at the cave with his younger brother Josh and several friends. They entered shortly after 8 o'clock. The atmosphere couldn't have been more ordinary. They laughed, they joked, they teased each other as they crawled through the tunnels. Nobody felt afraid. Nobody thought they were walking into history. As the group moved deeper underground, they eventually separated to explore different sections of the cave. John and Josh headed toward what they believed was the birth canal. The problem was that they weren't actually there. Years of erosion, small rockfalls, and the cave's confusing layout made certain passages almost impossible to distinguish. Instead of entering the birth canal, John unknowingly crawled into a narrow, unmapped passage near an area rescuers later identified as Ed's Push. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The tunnel narrowed gradually. John continued crawling headfirst, inch by inch, believing it would soon open into a larger chamber below. Instead, the passage narrowed even further. His shoulders scraped against the limestone. His chest became compressed between the walls, his hips wedged tightly behind him. Still believing there was open space ahead, John pushed forward one last time. That single movement changed everything. Gravity suddenly pulled him downward into a vertical crack. Within seconds, his body slid deeper into the passage until he became almost completely upside down. His arms were pinned beneath his chest, his knees bent awkwardly behind him, his head pointed toward the floor of the tunnel. There was barely enough room to move. At first, John wasn't panicking. He tried to push himself backwards. Nothing. He twisted his shoulders. Nothing. He attempted to brace his feet against the rock above him. Still nothing. Every movement forced him deeper into the limestone. That's when he realized something terrifying. He wasn't simply stuck. He was trapped. Only a few meters away, Josh heard his brother calling for help. He squeezed through the tight passage until he reached John's boots. Grabbing both ankles, Josh pulled with everything he had. Nothing moved. He tried again. Still nothing. The rock held John like concrete. Josh immediately understood this was no ordinary situation. His brother wasn't coming out without help. He looked at John one last time before turning around. Then he began crawling back through the maze of tunnels as fast as he possibly could to find anyone who could save him. Josh burst back through the cave as fast as the narrow passages would allow. Every second mattered. He found the rest of the group and shouted the words no one wanted to hear. "John's stuck." At first, everyone assumed it would be simple. People became wedged in caves all the time. A few strong pulls, a different angle, maybe removing a backpack. Usually that was enough. But when the first cavers reached John, they immediately realized this was different. Very different. John was trapped almost completely upside down inside a crack barely wider than his body. His chest was compressed between the limestone walls. His arms were pinned beneath him. His knees were folded awkwardly behind his back. He couldn't generate enough force to move even a single inch. The deeper rescuers looked, the worse it became. His hips had become locked behind a narrow bend in the tunnel. Any attempt to pull him backwards caused the rock to squeeze him even tighter. He wasn't simply wedged. His own body had become anchored inside the cave. Outside, word spread quickly. At approximately 9 p.m., emergency services were notified. Within a short time, rescue teams from across Utah began arriving at the cave entrance. Firefighters, paramedics, technical rope specialists, experienced cave rescuers. Eventually, more than 130 volunteers would take part in the operation. But there was one problem. Almost none of them could actually reach John. The route to John wasn't a straight tunnel. Rescuers had to crawl nearly 400 feet through twisting limestone passages. Some sections were so narrow that equipment had to be pushed ahead by hand. Others required rescuers to exhale completely just to squeeze through. Every oxygen tank, every drill, every rope, every pulley had to be passed person by person through tunnels no wider than a household washing machine. What would normally take minutes above ground took hours underground. Eventually, one rescuer reached John. His name was Brandon Kowalis. Lying beside him inside the cramped passage, Brandon immediately understood the seriousness of the situation. John had already been hanging upside down for several hours. The human body isn't designed for that position. Normally, your heart pumps blood upward against gravity, but when someone remains inverted, gravity works in reverse. Blood begins pooling in the head. Pressure inside the skull increases. The lungs struggle to expand. The heart must work harder with every beat. As the hours pass, breathing becomes more difficult. Eventually, multiple organs begin to fail. Despite everything, John remained calm. He spoke with the rescuers. He cracked jokes. He apologized for causing so much trouble. At one point, he looked at Brandon and quietly said, "I'm sorry." Brandon immediately replied, "Don't apologize. "We're getting you out." Neither man knew how difficult that would become. Doctors communicating from outside the cave instructed rescuers to keep talking to John. Anything to keep him conscious, anything to stop him from slipping away. For hours, John answered questions. He spoke about his wife, his daughter, medical school, his family waiting for him above ground. Sometimes he prayed aloud. Sometimes he simply listened as rescuers reassured him that they weren't giving up. Meanwhile, another rescue team was building something never before attempted inside Nutty Putty Cave. Because pulling John by hand wasn't possible, the tunnel was simply too narrow. Instead, engineers decided to build a mechanical pulley system directly inside the cave. Rescuers carried drills hundreds of feet underground. They drilled anchor bolts into the limestone walls. Steel carabiners were attached. Heavy-duty ropes were threaded through multiple pulleys. Outside the cave, larger teams prepared to pull on those ropes, while rescuers inside carefully guided John's body. The entire system took hours to construct. Every movement had to be performed while lying inside passages barely large enough for a single person. Finally, everything was ready. The order was given. Slowly, the ropes tightened. John began moving, just a fraction of an inch at first, then another. For the first time in nearly 20 hours, hope filled the cave. Rescuers could actually see progress. Another inch, another few inches. They believed they were finally going to free him. Then, without warning, a sharp metallic crack echoed through the tunnel. One of the anchor bolts drilled into the cave wall suddenly failed. The bolt ripped completely out of the limestone. Instantly, the entire pulley system collapsed. Thousands of pounds of force disappeared in a fraction of a second. The ropes went slack. John's body dropped violently back into the narrow crack. His weight forced him even deeper than before. Every inch rescuers had fought for was gone. For several seconds, no one spoke. Inside the cave, the only sound was the echo of loose rock falling into the darkness. The rescue operation had suffered its biggest setback, and everyone knew the truth. Time was running out. The failed anchor changed everything. Rescuers immediately began discussing another attempt, but every option carried enormous risk. The passage was so narrow that only one rescuer could reach John at a time. Installing another anchor would take hours they no longer had, and there was no guarantee the rock would hold a second time. Still, no one wanted to quit. More volunteers continued arriving above ground. Engineers studied the cave map. Doctors searched for another solution. Rescuers crawled through the maze again and again, refusing to believe there wasn't another way. By now, John had been suspended upside down for nearly 24 hours. The position was taking an enormous toll on his body. Blood continued pooling in his head. His heart had to fight gravity with every beat. His lungs couldn't fully expand because the narrow walls compressed his chest. Even taking a full breath had become exhausting. Every minute made the rescue more difficult. Despite the pain, John remained remarkably composed. He continued talking with the rescuers beside him. He asked about their families. He thanked them for everything they were doing. At one point, he quietly said, "I really want to get out." It wasn't a cry of panic. It was the simple hope of a man who still believed he might see his family again. Above ground, his family waited. His wife, Emily, was pregnant with their second child. Their young daughter was at home, too young to understand what was happening. Parents, brothers, sisters, friends. All they could do was hope that the next update would be good news. Hour after hour, they waited. Deep underground, the rescuers refused to leave John's side. One rescuer held his hand whenever he could reach it. Another kept speaking to him, making sure he knew he wasn't alone. In complete darkness, lit only by helmet lamps, strangers became the last people to comfort a man fighting for his life. As midnight approached, John's voice became weaker. The conversations grew shorter. His breathing slowed. Then, there was silence. Despite every effort, despite the hundreds of people working above and below ground, despite nearly 28 hours of continuous rescue attempts, John Edward Jones died during the early hours of November 25th, 2009. He was only 26 years old. The tragedy, however, wasn't over. John's body remained trapped exactly where he had died. Recovering him would require rescuers to enter the same unstable passage that had nearly claimed additional lives during the rescue. Engineers carefully examined every possibility. Could they widen the tunnel? No. The rock above was unstable. Could they remove sections of limestone? The risk of collapse was too high. Could they pull him free using heavier equipment? There simply wasn't enough space. Every expert reached the same heartbreaking conclusion. Attempting to recover John's body would place more lives in danger. The rescue had become a recovery, and even that was impossible. Show the cave map one final time. After consulting engineers, rescue specialists, and John's family, officials made a decision that would permanently change Nutty Putty Cave. The entrance would be sealed forever. Over the following days, heavy equipment was brought to the site. The natural entrance was filled with concrete. The surrounding ground was reshaped. The cave that had welcomed thousands of explorers over the years would never be entered again. John remained exactly where he had come to rest. His final resting place became part of the mountain itself. Today, there is no cave entrance to explore, only a quiet patch of desert, a memorial plaque, and the story of a young father whose final journey changed cave rescue forever. The tragedy also forced rescuers across the United States to rethink how cave emergencies are handled. It highlighted the dangers of tight, unmapped passages and reinforced the importance of specialized training, equipment, and careful risk assessment. For many rescuers who were there that night, the memory has never faded. Some have spoken publicly about the emotional weight of leaving a man behind despite doing everything humanly possible to save him. They didn't fail because they stopped trying. They failed because the mountain gave them no more chances. John left behind far more than headlines. He left behind a wife, 2 children, parents, brothers, friends, patients he would never treat, a future he would never get to live. His family has often asked people to remember him not for the way he died, but for the way he lived. A man known for his kindness, his faith, his sense of humor, his love for his family. Those who knew him say that is the legacy he would have wanted. Sometimes, the most dangerous places on Earth aren't the deepest oceans or the tallest mountains. Sometimes, they're hidden beneath an ordinary patch of ground, a place where a single wrong turn, a passage only inches too narrow, and one decision made in complete confidence can change countless lives forever. The darkness inside Nutty Putty Cave remains exactly as it was that night in November 2009, silent, still, untouched, and beneath hundreds of feet of limestone, John Edward Jones still rests where rescuers fought until the very end. His story isn't remembered because of how he died. It's remembered because, in his final hours, it revealed the courage, compassion, and determination of everyone who refused to leave him alone.